Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really ripping open a fascinating document all about education.
Mm.
And trust me, it's so much more than just classrooms and textbooks.
Yeah.
We're going to dig out the truly surprising ideas that explain how learning shapes pretty much everything.
Everything from our careers to our deepest emotions. Right?
Exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to truly unpack what education is, not just academically, but how it profoundly shapes us, our world, and even that messy, wonderful landscape of knowing and not knowing.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
Get ready for some serious revelations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we typically think of education, our minds jump straight to school. Right?
Yep, pretty much always.
But the document we're exploring lays out a much broader and, well, more powerful core definition right at the top. It says, education, at its core, is the intentional transmission, cultivation, and transformation of knowledge, skills, values, and ways of thinking, both individually and collectively.
Right. It immediately tells us this isn't just about memorizing facts.
Not at all.
It absolutely pushes beyond that conventional classroom image. From a knowledge-centric view, it makes it clear that education is the organized pursuit of knowledge. It's deliberate, not accidental.
Okay.
It involves the careful process of selecting, shaping, and transferring information across time, space, and generations. This isn't just random learning. It's a purposeful act.
Purposeful how? Like preserving tradition.
Yeah, or preparing people for life, or maybe even challenging what we already think we know.
Oh, wait.
What's truly insightful, I think, is how this material breaks down education's essence into 4 key dimensions. It's epistemological, meaning it grapples with what we know, how we know it, and, well, why we even bother seeking knowledge in the first place. Then it's deeply cultural, shaped by what any given society decides is vital to pass down.
Makes sense.
It's also instrumental, serving as a tool, kind of, to prepare individuals to navigate the world effectively. And perhaps most powerfully, it's transformative.
Transformative how?
Capable of fundamentally reshaping not only individuals, but entire civilizations.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where it really shifts the entire premise, isn't it? It's not just what we learn, but how and why we learn, and how that completely reshapes us and our societies. Because knowledge itself isn't just one thing, is it? We often act like it's just facts.
Right. No, it's far from a monolith. Our deep dive here reveals that education navigates several distinct forms of knowledge.
Like what?
Well, you have declarative knowledge, which is simply knowing that. Facts, concepts, principles.
Okay, like Paris is the capital of France.
Exactly. Then there's procedural knowledge, the knowing how, which includes skills, techniques, problem solving.
Like how to write an essay.
Precisely. We also learn through experiential knowledge, that knowing through experience. Things like intuition, insight, reflection.
Like what it feels like to lead a group.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Exactly, that feeling, that lived understanding. And finally, a really crucial one, metacognitive knowledge. That's knowing about knowing. Your awareness of your own learning process, your limitations, the strategies that work best for you.
Okay, that's interesting.
And what's fascinating is that education's true effectiveness, it sort of hinges on how well it integrates all these types. It's not just about accumulating facts, right?
It's how you use and reflect on that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the types of knowledge, but the modes of education that are varied too. Most of us immediately think of formal education.
Yeah, schools, universities.
The institutionalized learning, structured curricula, credentials. But then there's so much informal education.
Yeah, just life.
All those life experiences, conversations, mentorships, even how we learn from our parents.
Yeah, that's huge.
And we can't overlook non-formal education, like organized learning outside traditional systems, workshops, community classes.
Online courses, things like that.
Exactly.
And that's a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because each of these modes serves very different purposes.
How?
Well, some are primarily about preserving existing knowledge. Others are designed maybe to challenge it. And some expand or localize it to very specific contexts.
Okay.
And this brings us to some deeper philosophical questions that have always been at the heart of education.
Like what?
Like, is its primary goal transmission of what's known, or is it transformation into something new?
Yeah.
Should it prioritize utility? What helps society function? Or truth? What helps us understand reality?
Big questions.
And perhaps most profoundly, who gets to decide what is worth knowing in the first place? Is knowledge truly objective, or is it always, deeply entangled with power, culture, perspective?
Wow. Yeah. These are questions that truly impact all of us.
You really do.
They certainly do. And to truly grasp that, I think we need to take a historical sweep, connecting how our views of human nature, that old debate of nature versus nurture, have profoundly shaped how education has evolved throughout history.
Let's do it. Let's journey back to, say, prehistoric to early human societies. Here, education was really all about oral tradition, imitation, embodied experience.
Learning by doing, basically.
Pretty much. Knowledge was intrinsically linked to survival, ritual, social practice. The underlying assumption, it seems, was that nature and nurture were practically indistinguishable. You acquired knowledge simply by living, by being in proximity to elders and the land.
Right.
So the insight here is that education was truly nurturing through immersion, not formal instruction like we think of it today.
It's hard to even imagine school in that context. So what happened when we moved into, say, classical civilizations? Greece, ancient China.
A huge shift.
Yeah.
Methods expanded. You got philosophy, rhetoric, apprenticeships, the study of sacred texts.
More formalized.
Definitely. Knowledge became a mix of moral cultivation, practical skill, and theoretical inquiry. And the psychological assumptions started to split a bit.
How so?
Well, intelligence was seen as partly innate, maybe, but wisdom and virtue definitely had to be taught. Think of Plato versus Aristotle. Different ideas about how we learn.
Right, remembering versus experiencing.
Exactly. So education became semi-formalized, aiming to shape character as much as intellect.
Okay, and then the medieval period, what was the focus then?
Across Europe, the Islamic world, Asia, methods were heavily centered on scriptural study, religious schooling, and apprenticeship guilds.
Very structured.
Very. Knowledge became sacred, hierarchical, and often guarded. The dominant psychological assumption was that human nature was fundamentally flawed and needed correction.
So nurture was about fixing people.
Nurture was viewed almost as a path to salvation, yeah. The implication was clear. Education formalized hierarchy. It determined who got access, for how long, what counted as mastery. Nurture, in this era, was largely about correcting perceived human flaws.
Wow. So it was almost like a system of moral repair. But then we hit the Renaissance to Enlightenment period, and it feels like everything changed again. What was the big shift there?
That's where the pendulum really swung, Methods pivoted dramatically. You get the scientific method, the liberal arts, the rise of modern universities.
A focus on the reason.
Exactly. Knowledge was seen as discoverable, rational, universal. John Locke's famous idea of the mind as a blank slate tabula rasa became the dominant psychological assumption.
Meaning nurture could overcome anything.
Pretty much the idea. That nurture could overcome even birth status. The profound implication here was that the Enlightenment tipped the balance heavily toward nurture. It fostered this radical idea that anyone could be educated into reason and virtue, not just the elite.
It's a huge shift.
Massive. But then as we enter the Industrial Revolution, things changed again, driven by new societal needs.
Factories, mass production.
Right. So we saw the rise of mass schooling, standardized tests, certifications. Knowledge became functional, testable, hierarchical design for the factory floor, essentially.
And the view of the mind.
The psychological assumption was that people could be efficiently trained for specific societal roles. But interestingly, the emergence of IQ testing started to reintroduce the concept of nature into the equation.
So a bit of a swing back.
Kind of. This period introduced a new tension. Should education sort people based on their innate abilities in nature, or should it elevate everyone through nurture? That tension is still with us today, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And what about our current moment, the 20th and 21st centuries? Where does the pendulum swing now?
Well, today, in the information age, our methods are things like digital learning, hybrid models, coaching, lifelong education.
We're constantly learning.
Exactly. Knowledge is incredibly expansive, often unstable, and increasingly democratized, or at least it seems that way. Psychologically, neuroplasticity.
The brain's ability to change.
Right. Its incredible ability to adapt and rewire itself that strongly reaffirms nurture. But at the same time, genetic and temperament studies still acknowledge nature's role.
So it's not either.
It seems the implication now is that education is no longer just about teaching facts, but about cultivating adaptability. Nature and nurture are kind of rebalanced. Biology is seen as a starting point, perhaps, rather than a fixed destiny.
So what does this entire historical journey mean for us? It tells us education has always been a mirror, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Reflecting how we see the human mind, whether we believe people are born fixed or if they are truly malleable, capable of endless growth.
It's a constant pendulum swing, yeah.
Yeah.
Always reacting, always adapting.
But let's be honest, education isn't just about lofty ideals, right? The document makes it really clear that our education systems serve a lot of different purposes, some of which are pretty surprising when you look closely.
Absolutely. Beyond the obvious one, knowledge transmission, that's the idealist view, just teaching valuable knowledge and skills. There are several other functions at play.
Okay, like what?
Well, one that really hits home for many is simply childcare and supervision, the pragmatic view.
Huh. School is daycare.
For millions of working parents, school is fundamentally a safe place for their kids during the day. It's a huge economic and social function, even if we don't always think of it as education.
True.
Then, of course, there's the whole socialization and culture aspect, the sociological view.
Learning the rules of society.
Exactly. Schools literally teach people how to exist in society, how to queue up, how to sit still, how to meet deadlines. There's a powerful hidden curriculum here that shapes shared norms and values.
Right, the unwritten rules.
And let's not forget sorting and credentialing. This is a very bureaucratic view. Schools act as gatekeepers.
Grades, diplomas, test scores.
Yeah, identifying talent or supposed talent and allocating opportunity through those means, which inevitably stratifies society, right?
It does. Then there's the political angle.
Perhaps the most contentious: political narrative and control. This critical view highlights how governments use education to shape beliefs, standardize history, ethics, national identity.
What gets taught and what gets left out.
Precisely. It's why curriculum debates are often so intense, they're really debates over values and power.
Okay, what else? More positive ones.
Well, moving to the more hopeful, there's personal growth and human potential. That's the humanist view. Helping people grow into their best selves, nurturing curiosity, emotional intelligence.
The ideal, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. And finally, economic development, the utilitarian view, where education systems are often designed quite explicitly to create productive workers and grow the economy, directly matching labor force needs.
So, workers for the system.
In that view, yes. The truth is, our education systems are truly ecosystems of competing agendas. They're pulling in all these different directions at once.
And that creates winners and losers, doesn't it?
It does. For example, when it comes to sorting and credentialing, compliant achievers often win, while maybe late bloomers or unconventional thinkers might feel completely left behind.
Right.
When it comes to political narrative, those whose stories align with the dominant narrative often benefit, while certain histories or perspectives might be marginalized or ignored. These are profound tensions.
Yeah. This raises an important question for you, our listener. Which of these functions of education helped you most in your life? And perhaps more pointedly, which ones failed you? Something to think about. Okay, let's unpack this now for your personal experience. From the moment we're born, we're like open systems, right? We're wired to learn.
Totally. We don't arrive with language, moral codes, or cultural knowledge already installed. Our brains are incredibly plastic, just ready to absorb everything around us.
But it's not automatic, is it?
No, and while we're absolutely wired to learn, what we learn is deeply shaped by things like the timing of a lesson, the specific context it's framed in, the environment that values it.
Repetition matters too, right?
Repetition, emotional salience, what actually sticks with you. A powerful point from the material is that the idea that everyone knows the same things by age 18 is a myth.
That's so true.
People carry invisible knowledge gaps for life, and it's not always obvious, even to them.
And there's this pervasive cultural narrative, isn't there?
Yeah.
This illusion of educational completion.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that you go to school until 18 or 22 or 26, and then boom, you're educated, you're done, ready for life.
As if knowledge is a static thing you just collect in a bucket. But knowledge simply isn't static. The world changes constantly. Our roles shift. New gaps emerge all the time. Think about the sudden need for AI literacy or, crucial mental health skills.
Things we weren't taught.
Exactly. And many people stop formally learning, not because they're done, but because the traditional system stops holding them accountable after graduation.
And then inertia sets in.
That's when inertia can set in, yeah. You start to forget what you don't use, you default to biases, and sometimes maybe you even protect your ego by avoiding areas where you feel ignorant.
So older doesn't always mean wiser, necessarily?
Well, an older person could certainly know more, but stagnation is a very real and common risk if learning isn't actively pursued.
And this leads to what the document calls fragmented learning and uneven knowledge, where truly essential skills like, cooking, budgeting, conflict resolution, critical thinking, they're just incredibly unevenly distributed across the population.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember graduating college knowing calculus but having zero idea how to change a tire or like manage my finances.
Exactly. It feels like there are these massive gaps in what we're expected to just pick up in life.
So why does that happen?
Well, the material points out a few key reasons for this disconnect. These crucial skills often aren't prioritized in school curriculums. They're often treated as soft skills, not rigorous academic subjects.
Not easily testable.
Not easily testable. Plus, they're frequently modeled, not explicitly taught. If your parents didn't show you healthy emotional regulation, where would you learn it?
Good point.
And often they're framed as intuitive, as if you should just know how to do taxes or manage anxiety.
Which is ridiculous.
It is. The truth is, as the document puts it, many adults are walking around with massive knowledge gaps, not because they're lazy or stupid, but because their nurture never caught up.
Wow. That's powerful.
And as we get older, three powerful forces particularly resist continued learning.
Okay, what are they?
Our comfort zones. I'm good at what I already know, why learn something new? Cognitive fatigue, learning new things, is genuinely hard work, especially without support structures like school.
It takes energy.
It really does.
Yeah.
And ego preservation, admitting you don't know something, can feel incredibly shameful, especially as an adult who's supposed to know things.
Right, there are no gold stars for adult learning like there are in school.
Exactly. You often only learn when life absolutely demands it, when you hit a wall. This explains why some brilliant academics might be, say, terrible at personal finances.
Or someone great with empathy might struggle with basic tech.
Precisely. The knowledge is uneven.
Which means lifelong learning and survival isn't just some, corporate buzzword. It's actually crucial.
It absolutely is. Modern life demands constant re-education. Careers change. Technology evolves at warp speed. Worldviews are constantly challenged.
Yet most traditional educational systems essentially stop preparing us for this by age 18 or 22.
Right. And the irony is, the most valuable knowledge in adulthood is often non-academic. It's deeply interpersonal or tacit, that unspoken wisdom you can't learn from a book. So, to really summarize this personal arc of learning, knowledge is inherently partial. Always. It decays unless it's actively tended to.
Use it or lose it.
Pretty much. It's unevenly distributed, both by design and by accident, and it's deeply personal and emotionally bound. Ultimately, it's not just about what you know, it's what you can actually use when needed.
That brings us to the next big question this material tackles. Is knowledge relative, or is there such a thing as truly essential knowledge? And maybe most curiously, why do we moralize it so much? Why do we judge people for not knowing things?
Right. When we ask what is essential knowledge, it becomes immediately clear that it's deeply contextual, not universal.
Essential for what exactly?
It's essential for survival, for functioning in society, for flourishing as a human being, for contributing to a democracy. What is deemed essential is always relative to the values and outcomes you prioritize.
So there's no universal list.
Not really. While some knowledge is widely shared enough to be considered core, it's always tied to a purpose, a context. Right. And this leads directly into why we moralize knowledge. There's a powerful psychological mechanism at play here.
What's going on there?
Firstly, there's this underlying equation we seem to carry. Knowledge equals power equals responsibility.
Okay.
So if someone could know something important, like, say, the realities of systemic racism or the urgency of climate change, but chooses not to, it can feel like willful ignorance, especially if that lack of knowledge leads to harm.
Right, like they should know.
Exactly. Secondly, we often equate ignorance with character flaws. If someone says something uninformed, we might immediately see it as laziness or arrogance or even moral failure rather than just an information gap.
You should know better. That phrase carries a lot of weight.
It's a potent moral accusation. And thirdly, it's often about ego defense. Knowing what others don't can powerfully reassure us of our own competence. It helps us distance ourselves from our own fear of ignorance.
So judging someone else's ignorance makes us feel smarter.
In a way, yeah. It defends our own fragile sense of knowing.
This resonates so strongly with what the document calls the curriculum paradox.
Yes.
All those things we diligently learn in school but maybe rarely use, like complex trigonometric identities or memorized historical dates.
The Krebs cycle.
Right?
Right.
Versus the things we don't learn but arguably desperately should, like how to cook a basic meal, how to manage our taxes, how to grieve loss, or even just how to evaluate sources online.
It's a massive disconnect, isn't it? The document explains why this exists. Schools primarily teach what's easiest to measure.
Standardized tests.
Exactly. It's genuinely hard to give a standardized test on self-awareness or conflict resolution. Plus, curriculums are also shaped by inertia tradition. Many subjects persist simply because they always have.
And power dynamics.
Absolutely. Power dynamics play a huge role in deciding what matters, who gets to define valuable knowledge, and sadly, cultural myths about intelligence often prioritize abstract academic intelligence over emotional, social, or practical intelligence.
So schools value testable knowledge over livable knowledge.
Often, yes. That seems to be the trend.
What I found particularly striking in the document was how much of what we think we should know, or how we judge others for not knowing, is tied to something deeper. It really dives into the emotional landscape of knowledge.
Yes. It highlights several possibilities here. There's the profound shame of not knowing.
Feeling stupid, basically.
Yeah, where not knowing something feels like a deeply personal failure,
Yeah.
leading to insecurity. Questions like, why don't I know how to do taxes, reveal this vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the arbitrary nature of should, recognizing that the line between essential and non-essential knowledge is incredibly blurry and socially constructed, yet it still affects how people are treated.
Like, why is it okay not to know how to change a tire, but maybe not okay to be unfamiliar with a major social issue?
Exactly. Where does that line come from? There's also the fear of being left behind, an almost existential anxiety about knowledge expanding too fast.
FOMO, but for knowledge.
Kind of, a subtle fear that being uninformed might cost us dignity or belonging. And the mirror of judgment,
Mm-hmm.
where we easily judge others for not knowing, often as a deflection from our own fragile sense of knowing. After all, the truth is, everyone is ignorant, just in different directions.
That's a great way to put it.
And finally, questioning what knowledge is for. Are we confusing raw information with wisdom? Or maybe just compliance with true understanding?
So we often act like knowledge is a moral hierarchy, even if we don't consciously admit it, using it as a kind of currency in our interactions.
Absolutely. This knowledge as currency manifests everywhere. In political debates, how can they not know this? In social justice discussions, educate yourself. In our careers, I should already know how to do this.
That pressure.
It's deeply driven by our needs for belonging, power, protection, performance. And internally, we all have these competing selves, right?
Like what?
The curious child who wants to ask why, the confident teacher who wants to feel useful, but also the insecure self who might resent someone else's expertise or feel threatened by it.
And you see that competitive mindset baked into so much of modern learning, don't you? Grading curves, class rankings, even online debates.
Oh, definitely.
It often turns knowledge into a zero-sum game. If you know more, I know less.
Which completely collapses the collaborative potential of learning. The material then offers some powerful provocations for reframing the relationship to knowing.
Like what? How could we think differently?
Well, what if not knowing were treated as an invitation to learn, not a flaw to hide? What if knowing something were seen not as a badge of superiority, but maybe a gift to pass on? What if ignorance weren't a threat to be ashamed of, but a shared starting point for collective inquiry? It just creates a psychological spaciousness for genuine growth.
Takes the pressure off.
To deepen our understanding even further, we need to consider some epistemological nuance, some finer nuance about knowledge itself.
Okay.
Firstly, there's a crucial difference between knowing that versus knowing how. School often teaches declarative knowledge facts, formulas, but life demands procedural knowledge. Skills, like how to truly hold space for someone in distress, or how to spot manipulation online. You can know that racism exists, for example, without knowing how to navigate or discuss it constructively.
Big difference.
Huge. Secondly, there's tacit knowledge. This is the unspoken stuff, hard to define, like reading a room, understanding social cues, knowing the rhythm of a difficult conversation.
Things you can't really teach from a book.
Exactly. But we often judge people harshly for not knowing these tacit things, even when they were never explicitly taught. It creates these invisible social hierarchies.
Interesting.
Thirdly, consider the difference between false certainty versus real inquiry. People often cling to certainty like a shield, right, against insecurity.
Safer.
It feels safer. But ironically, the most truly well-informed people often express more uncertainty because they understand the inherent complexity and vastness of what they don't know.
That makes sense. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Perfect.
That's where it gets really interesting, I think, diving into the psychological layers of how knowledge truly impacts us as individuals.
Yeah, these psychological layers are profound. Knowledge as identity is key.
What does that mean?
What you know often becomes deeply intertwined with who you are, your profession, your social group, even your self-worth. So when someone questions what we know, it can feel like they're attacking our very self, not just a fact.
Feels personal.
Very personal. Then there's the trauma of being wrong. For some people, early experiences of shame or ridicule around not knowing in school or family can lead to long-term avoidance or perfectionism.
Trying desperately not to look stupid again.
Exactly, all to avoid the pain of being seen as incompetent. And finally, knowledge anxiety. In our digital age, we experience FOMO not just socially but intellectually.
Fear of missing out on information.
Yeah, questions like, how have I not heard of that book? Or why am I just now learning about this crucial issue can trigger real self-doubt and sometimes be paralyzing.
Wow. Hey, beyond the individual, there are also crucial sociocultural dimensions at play, right?
Yeah.
Which really broaden our perspective.
Absolutely. Firstly, and this is huge, access is not equal. Some people grow up with abundant resources, books, mentors, stable environments. Others are contending with poverty, trauma, systemic barriers, instability.
So their knowledge gaps aren't their fault.
Often, their knowledge gaps are systemic, not a result of personal neglect or lack of intelligence. That's critical to remember. Secondly, cultural knowledge is not universal knowledge.
Explain that.
Knowing how to navigate, say, a corporate board meeting is profoundly different from knowing how to navigate a complex family argument in a multi-generational immigrant household. Both are valid forms of expertise, deep knowledge.
But only one is usually seen as professional.
But only one is typically deemed professional or valuable in certain contexts. And then there's epistemic injustice.
That sounds important. What is it?
It's a powerful concept. It describes how people are often not believed or taken seriously due to their identity. For example, women, racial minorities, neurodivergent individuals, people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, their knowledge might be discounted or dismissed, even when they possess it and are speaking truth, simply because of who they are.
So their voice is literally devalued because of identity, regardless of what they know.
Exactly. Imagine a brilliant female engineer in a male-dominated team proposing a solution. Her male colleague might say the same thing 5 minutes later and get praised, while her idea was ignored. That's epistemic injustice.
Wow. Or a student from a minority background sharing lived experience.
Exactly. And having it dismissed because it doesn't fit the standard narrative. It's subtle but deeply damaging. It impacts how knowledge is even received and valued in the first place.
That term, epistemic injustice, is incredibly powerful. And finally, we come to the existential layers of knowledge. These feel like the deepest questions of all.
They truly make you pause, like, does knowing make us happier?
Good question. Does it?
Sometimes, more knowledge can undeniably mean more grief, more disillusionment, or certainly more responsibility. There's a reason the saying, ignorance is bliss, exists, right? Is it always better to know every uncomfortable truth?
Something to wrestle with.
Then, do we ever really know anything?
Yeah.
In a, postmodern or even quantum sense, knowledge is probabilistic, it's shifting, it's constantly constructed. What we know today might unravel tomorrow.
That can shake your foundations.
It can profoundly affect our trust in institutions, our memories, even ourselves. And critically, why do we want to know? What's the fundamental drive?
Safety, status, connection, truth.
All of those, perhaps, but our underlying motivation profoundly shapes not only what we seek to know, but also what we're willing to unlearn.
Unlearning is hard.
It's incredibly hard. See, you're not just circling knowledge in an academic sense here. You're tracing the emotional, moral, and social terrain of being a person trying to understand the world without being crushed by it.
Wow.
The deeper insight, I think, is that knowledge is not just information. It's relational, it's positional, it's embodied, and very often, it's deeply political.
It's more than just facts in your head.
Much more. It's a lens we carry, but also a mirror we sometimes fear. Sometimes to know more means genuinely losing a version of ourselves, an old certainty. And sometimes, perhaps most profoundly, to admit ignorance is the bravest form of wisdom there is.
Okay. So to summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive for you, our listener. First, knowledge is not neutral. It's profoundly shaped by access, context, identity, emotion. We often judge ignorance without really understanding the invisible structures or even traumas behind it. Crucial point. Second, education systems, while aiming to enlighten, are often compromised vessels. They aim to teach, yes, but also to sort, to contain, to socialize, maybe even to conform. And much of what we truly need, like Emotional intelligence, media literacy, critical self-reflection is often left out or, de-emphasized.
The livable knowledge gap.
Third, knowing becomes deeply personal and moral. We often mix up knowledge with goodness or intelligence with worth. That makes ignorance feel intensely shameful, even though knowledge gaps are just a part being human.
Completely inevitable.
Fourth, learning is uneven, ongoing, and fragile. Even essential skills aren't guaranteed. Knowledge, like a muscle, it really atrophies if not actively used intended.
Needs constant care.
Fifth, we fear ignorance, both our own and others. It makes us feel vulnerable. But reacting with shame or judgment, it just closes the door to further learning. Curiosity, on the other hand, is the key that opens it.
Curiosity over judgment.
Sixth, wisdom isn't just knowing more stuff. It's fundamentally knowing how to be with not knowing. True education includes the critical acts of unlearning, questioning, and living comfortably with ambiguity.
It's not about performing intelligence.
No, it's about staying engaged with the unknown with grace, humility, and courage.
Whoa.
And finally, you are not simply a list of facts you've memorized. You're a dynamic, ever-evolving web of learning in motion. Your worth isn't defined by what's in your head, but perhaps by your willingness to keep growing, adapting, and questioning.
That ongoing process.
Exactly. So if there's one idea to carry with you from this deep dive, maybe it's this. To truly know is to be acutely aware of what you don't know and still proceed through the world with compassion.
Compassion for yourself and for others.
Yeah.